If you've ever caught yourself telling that, I want to do this, I want to do that, but eventually ending up telling yourself that I'm busy, this video is for you. For a long period of time, I thought that being busy meant being productive, but it is actually the other way around. And in today's episode, what I'm going to share with you are some of the learnings that I've had myself, which I'm going to elaborate. And essentially, my purpose is to help you take away learnings in terms of how to manage your time better, effectively, and efficiently so that you can stop wasting it and manage it like a pro. On that note, let's begin. Well, the reason why I wanted to bring this video about managing time is very personal. Well, this is something that I've been working on for about 1.5 years. Well, if I have to give you a bit of a context about myself, I do have a 10 to 7 work life. Well, in India or in this part of the world, it's 10 to 7. It's not really a 9 to 5 kind of a privilege. Sometimes it can go 10 to 8, 10 to 9, 10 to 10. But yeah, meaning I do have a job, and with that, it is when I started to think about my podcast journey, and I really had to ensure that I'm managing my time well, because this pursuit is time consuming, and if I don't manage it well, then it will be exhausting, and then I'll end up giving up on something. Right? And it is from those personal learnings that I have synthesized for myself, which I wanted to bring to you so that you can have some concrete takeaways that you can apply to your day-to-day routines and to your day-to-day processes. A caveat to that is whatever I'm going to share are practices that has worked for me. It may or may not work for you, but I would request you and invite you to stay tuned to this video and engage in a way as if you're learning about some experiments that you would want to apply. Well, experiments may work, may not work. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, you have your own ways, right? So that's kind of the intent. If this makes sense, stay tuned with me, and it's going to be interesting because we are obviously going to unfold, unlearn, and then learn. Well, something that really worked for me in order to manage everything at the same time was one simple thing, and you won't believe what that was. It was just a shift with the way I was telling myself about one thing. I stopped saying that I'm busy. And trust me, the secret lies in not saying I'm busy, but in actually taking the control of your time. And that's what we are going to elaborate upon. How often do you say that I'm busy? Think about it. Take a step back and write down in the comments, right? It is this I am busy trap that we need to get rid of. You see, when we say I'm busy, we are essentially creating a mental block. We give ourselves an excuse to not evaluate or reevaluate our priorities. Instead, what I've personally learned is to say that I'm focusing on X because this shift helps me direct my energy intentionally. And that is something extremely, extremely important. Here's an interesting trivia for you all. Did you know that the studies show people who say I'm too busy actually report feeling more stressed than those who don't? It's not the workload, it's the mindset. I repeat, it's not the workload, it's the mindset. Well, interestingly, when I stopped saying I'm busy, I started noticing that my productivity skyrocketed because I started to focus on things that truly, truly matters. That's what shifts the game completely. It's about how can you really stop saying, which is conventionally wired into us, basis our context, basis our conditioning, and it's very easy to say, I'm busy. But trust me, the day you stop saying this, it will start helping you to change your game in many ways. Now, let me talk to you about something that is very interesting and that kind of came out and surfaced while I reflected over these past few years on how am I really using my time. And I would like to call them as the time drainers. Guess what these time drainers were? Very simple. The social media. the time that we spend binge watching on Netflix or Amazon Prime, whatever, the time that we spend scrolling through TikTok videos or the YouTube videos, etc. Now, trust me when I say these are the sneaky culprits that come into your lives and they exhaust you like anything, and they take away the majority of the time from you, which you could have used to be more productive, to be more efficient, and most importantly, to enjoy something that you really, really want to. Right? And some might say that, I do this because it helps me relax. Well, good for you, because trust me, it doesn't. And you can look up to a lot of research, a lot of different things, what it does to you when you do endless scrolling without a head, without any mind, without any intentionality. It is actually pulling you down at a level of energy, and of course, you end up wasting your time. I will not deny that I have fallen for this trap 100%. But if we are able to get rid of these time drainers, trust me, they add immense value, and suddenly you will realize that the quotient of joy and the quotient of effectiveness in your life really, really goes up. Now, let me share with you an example. I'm sure you start watching a particular YouTube video, or let's say a short or a reel, and before you know it, you're 5 videos deep or maybe more, watching something completely irrelevant basis the suggestions that comes in, the algorithm, the way it works, and then after some time you realize, you wasted so much of time. You could have done something else. And that's what I call as the time leakage, and that's what we got to prevent. We have to be extremely focused and intentional about it. So what's the solution? The solution is very simple. Be intentional. Just be intentional. If you're spending time on social media, make sure it's purposeful. For example, watch Unfoldlearning Podcast and learn something for yourself and people around you. Whether it's networking, learning, or getting inspired, let it be a tool for growth and not really a trap. And if it's a trap, get rid of it. A few things that has helped me over the years is actually removing the social media apps from my home screen. It is actually embedded within, so that I have to take some time, give it a few seconds to get onto that app and then open. Remember, our brains are wired, right, in a particular way, and our brains will take shortcuts to find the easy way out. So make it difficult for the brain to go to that social media app on your phone, right? And that kind of helps. Also, there are a lot of apps which helps you to slow down your process. Like, for example, if you click on your Instagram, it will give you about 3 to 5 seconds to think, are you sure you want to do this right now? And imagine how it can help you and prevent you from distractions when you're deep into some work, or you're thinking about doing something other than just being passive and ridiculously scrolling. Well, the other thing that I kind of realized the hard way was telling myself that social media is not a tool or a medium to relax. There are other avenues to relax. If I really want to relax, I might meditate, I might read a book, I might just go out for a run, or go do some exercise, whatever. There are a lot of other better ways to relax, maybe journal, but social media doesn't help you to relax, and you need to tell that to yourself. Now let's actually get into the interesting part. Like, what are those skills that we can master to actually be a pro at managing time and not really wasting it? And when I say managing time, the logic checks are very simple. Well, I'm using my time with intentionality, and I'm using my time to do something that gives me joy and helps me to feel productive. That's the logic check that we need to apply. So now let's actually deep dive into what are those skills that we need to master. And like I said before, I'm not going to talk about why is this important, why time management is really essential. I would like to believe and give you all the benefit of doubt that you all think that it is important, but where we get stuck is actually understanding and realizing and incorporating how do we build our skills towards it. And trust me, it's a process and it's a journey in itself. Today, I'm going to share with you a few things that are simple, that anybody can do, if they are consistent, you actually master at managing your time like no one. Yeah, so let's get into that. Number one is prioritization. The most fundamental aspect when you think about managing your time and being productive. And this is where I kind of, tried a lot of different things. Some worked, some did not work, but essentially, after about 1.5 years of consistent practice, I have figured out a methodology that works for me. And maybe you can try it for yourself. When you think of prioritization, what you can do, and you can scale it across a month, across a week, or on a day. I'm going to share with you on a daily basis. You wake up and let's say you get onto your work, and it could be anything. It could be studies, it could be your office work, it could be anything that you're working towards. At first, list down everything that you think is important for the day, right? That's the step one. Step two, now this is where it gets interesting. You need to identify 3 big rocks, right? And when I say big rocks, I mean really the big rocks. Now, an easy way to define it is that if you are not doing these 3 things, these big rocks, then all other priorities will fail, right? Identify those 3 big rocks that you cannot miss out. If you miss, that means everything will fall apart. Now, out of that whole list, once you have identified your 3 big rocks, and I'm repeating, only 3, not 4, not 2, 3 big rocks. Once you identify those 3 big rocks, identify 2 small rocks, right? And these 2 small rocks are extremely personal to yourself. Something that you have been wanting to do or longing for some time. Maybe your hobby, or maybe things like meditating, journaling, reading, etc. Whatever you would want to do. In my case, these 2 side rocks were essentially my podcast journey, which I started about like 9 months ago or 10 months ago. And then slowly now I've started to build some momentum, right? Now it is falling into those big rocks. But very simple. When you think about prioritization, you think about everything that you got to do in a day. Identify 3 big rocks for that day that are non-negotiable, and then the 2 side rocks that are more personal to you. It could be spending time with your partner, it could be spending time with your family, whatever you think is relevant for you, right? And in this whole scheme of prioritization, the biggest logic check that I want to share with you is that never ever do more than 5 priorities in a day. And trust me on this. Nothing will happen. You will never end with your priorities in a day. You need to put a full stop. And someone someday told me this, that crisis is a state of mind, right? So you got to be extremely aggressive with prioritization, and that's the step 1. That's actually the fundamental of ensuring that you're managing your time efficiently and you're being productive like nobody. The second one, and this is one of my favorite, trust me, I am saying this, that this is one of my favorite today, but back then when I started doing this, I hated it the most. And it's time blocking. It's actually using your calendar in the best possible way. When you identify your big rocks, when you identify your small rocks, you actually place them into your calendar, right? You control the calendar and give yourself that time. A particular aspect could take about 1 hour, could take about 2 hours. Put that into your calendar and follow it diligently. Now, one could say that, oh, is my life a function of the calendar? Well, maybe yes. If it helps you to be in a process, to be in a regime, yes, it is what it is. Because if you would want to manage your time in the most efficient way, calendaring is imperative. You cannot go away from it. There are a lot of tools, there are a lot of ways to calendar, pen, paper, digital, do whatever you want to. But trust me, if you're not blocking time, if you're not having chunks for your big rocks, for your small rocks, you are not going to be able to manage your time. It's difficult at the start, I agree, but once you do it again and again, it will help you. I did for 3 months a pen and paper timetable, and it worked. But now I've moved on to digital, and I use the calendar that are there as a tool in itself on all our devices. These two, if you are able to master prioritization, and let me put a prefix to it, aggressive prioritization and time blocking, nobody can stop you from being productive, effective, and efficient with your time. Now let me give you a kind of a tip, right? And I don't know if you're aware of this, but there is a term called as eat the frog that comes from a Mark Twain quote. It means starting off with the most difficult priority or the thing that you would want to do. So essentially, the big rock that you choose, the three big rocks, choose the most difficult ones, because once you're able to get over it, you'll be able to see through any other priorities, right? And the fun part, like after doing this again and again, what started to happening, even though I was focusing on my 5 rocks, 3 big rocks and 2 small rocks, what started to happen was, as I was becoming more proficient in following my calendar, in doing those things within the given period of time, it started opening up slots to do something more. Well, there are days where it seems like, things are completed. There will be the priorities, but like I said, the logic check is only 5 priority a day. But then what it does is it opens up a lot of space to involve some miscellaneous and prioritize on those miscellaneous items as well. Now that's a big one. Also, let me tell you, there will be days where you might do the prioritization, where you might do the time blocking, but you find that you are not able to finish it within that given time. And it's okay. Remember, it's a part of the practice. Remember, it's a process. It's a journey. Give yourself that time. Be kind to yourself and trust the process. And trust me when I say this, you will see it yield you results in the best possible way. Logic checks that you need to keep in mind: 5 priorities only a day, 3 big rocks, something that are non-negotiable, and 2 small rocks that are more personal to you. Yeah, and put these on your calendar, right? Block time, how much ever time you want to allocate, you allocate. And enjoy the sense of control that you will feel with time. Additionally, there are a lot of frameworks out there like the important urgent matrix or the Pomodoro technique or the 2-minute or the 5-minute rule. I'm not going to get into those things. There are also a lot of tools. Something that I use extensively is Notion, and there is an aspect called as the second brain, which probably I'll share in some other video. It's really interesting, but it can only be leveraged once you get into the regime of prioritizing big rocks, small rocks, and putting them on your calendar and blocking your time. But we'll get there someday. But the reason why I share this is that you can go and explore and see how these can fit into your scheme of things. But essentially, I wanted to share with you something that is simple and sustainable, yet effective. And like I said before, consider these as experiments that you can apply to your lives basis my learnings. If it works, superb. You can thank me. You can put your comment saying that, hey, it worked. If it doesn't, you can still say that it didn't work, but this is what worked instead. Again, it will help me to learn from you. I think one big skill that probably nobody will tell you and nobody will share with you is the skill of honesty. Right? And yes, I'm being intentional when I say this. When you think of managing your time, when you think of prioritizing, when you think of blocking the time, the real benchmark is here, right? And it is only driven by the honesty. If you are honest to yourself in actually being diligent about engaging in the process, about following the time that you give, you will fail, of course. It has to happen at the start. You will put some time, it might not work. You realize that, oh, this would require 2 hours instead of 1 hour, or it would require 30 minutes instead of 2 hours. All of those permutation combinations will come into play, but you need to be honest with yourself. And every day, by the end of the day, if you are honestly able to ask yourself that if you were diligent enough to follow through the process, that is what is going to set you apart from those who are not able to manage their time and they waste their time. Honesty is what is going to drive your accountability, and that is the key, because if you're not intentional, you will not be able to focus, and if you're not able to focus, you will not be able to prioritize, and if you're not able to prioritize, you will not be able to see it through, and if you don't do that, you will not have a productive utility of your time that you have. Because remember, everybody has 24 hours with them. But what is the game-changing factor? It's what they do with those 24 hours, right? And if you are honest to yourself, that's when things will start happening, because productivity, managing time isn't about tricking yourself into working harder. It's about being honest with how you're spending your time. Are you really working on that important project or that important thing, or are you just avoiding it? The more you can be truthful to yourself, it'll be much easier to course correct, and it'll prevent you from procrastination. And the best way to do it, or the way I do it, is actually at the end of the day, I do a bit of a 15-minute kind of a review where I ask myself what worked, what didn't, and what should change tomorrow, right? All right, so here we are at the end of the video, and 5 key takeaways that I would want you to leave with is: number 1, stop saying I am busy. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. Focus on what really matters. Number 2, identify and eliminate the time drainers. Number 3, master the skill of prioritization with 3 big rocks. I repeat, 3 big rocks and 2 small rocks. And the second one is time blocking. Use your calendar to block your time, to block your big rocks. Use tools like the important urgent matrix, the Notion, etc., whatever works for you. Remember, the tools are just ways to make things easy for you. They are not the solution. And the last one, be honest to yourself and review your progress regularly. Remember, productivity, managing time efficiently, effectively, is not about doing more. Rather, it's about doing what really matters to you. On that note, thank you very much for being there. I hope this video resonated with you. You have some concrete learnings to take away. And like I said before, treat this as an experiment, and don't miss to subscribe the channel, Unfold Learning Podcast. This is your host, Kaustav, and I will see you next week. Thank you for being there.